Eileen couldn't hear the bird chatter anymore. She heard only her ragged breathing, rough like a saw through wood, and her galloping heart. She stumbled again, catching her foot on a raised root. Her muscles were too drained to keep her upright. She hit the ground hard, branches poking at her side and a rock digging into her collarbone. Eileen grunted, pushed away from the rock, and clutched at the nearest trunk as she waited for the dizziness to fade. The cool moss felt good under her cheek. A medley of scents, organic decay, fungus, and the strange musk that came from insects, filled her nose. She used it to ground herself as she focused on the rough bark beneath her fingers, the moss against her skin, and the creaking noise of flexing branches in the canopy above. A twig snapped. It was no more than 20 feet away. Eileen flinched and pressed her lips together to quieten her rasping breaths. She didn't know what had broken the twig, but whatever it was, it had been following her for more than an hour. She tried to look for it, but the vegetation was too thick. Massive trunks, some hundreds of years old, clustered together, linked by trailing vines and weedy, light-starved shrubs. The sun was close to setting. It desaturated her environment, dousing every color in the same shade of gray. Leaves crunched as the other being took a step closer. Eileen bit down on a moan. She didn't want to run any longer. She didn't want to be in the forest as the light faded. More than anything, she wished she hadn't decided to go hiking that day. She should have been enjoying her last night in the hotel room, packing her belongings and looking forward to seeing her parents the following afternoon. Now she would have given anything to find the path out. She'd been lost in Ashlough Forest for more than 5 hours. Her water bottle was empty. Her lungs ached. Everything was starting to look the same. She felt like she'd passed the same formations 1,000 times, but that was impossible. She didn't know if she was walking towards civilization or away from it. The second possibility filled her with icy terror. Ashlough Forest stretched for hundreds of kilometers, a blanket of impenetrable green and twisting rivers. If she'd strayed too far from the path, she could spend years wandering through the forest and never find her way out. A bird fluttered away in a frenzy as its nest was disturbed. Eileen looked in its direction, searching for motion, but it was impossible to see through the gloom. She licked dry, cracked lips. "Leave me alone." Even to her, the cry sounded pathetic. She stayed huddled at the roots of the tree, pressed against the bark as though it might offer her some protection. Every minute robbed her of more light. She tried not to imagine what would happen when the final traces of sun faded from the sky. She'd only planned for a half-day hike and hadn't brought anything to light her surroundings. She would be trapped in the darkness, surrounded by spiky branches and sharp rocks she couldn't see. And alone with it. Something shifted between 2 trees. Eileen tried to fix on it, but it was gone before she could catch more than a glimpse. It wasn't small, though. Not a wolf or a wildcat. There was so little time left. She forced herself to her feet, gasping as sore, bruised muscles took her weight, then staggered forward. In the twisting chaos of the forest, it was easy to imagine paths where there were none. The narrow, clear patches led on for a few feet, sometimes as many as 20 or 30, then vanished. She knew trying to follow those phantom paths was insane. She still couldn't stop herself. Dead branches scraped at her exposed forearms and face. She squinted to protect her eyes and stumbled onwards. She couldn't hear the other entity following her, but she knew it would be there, waiting for her to stop again. She couldn't stop, though. No matter how dark it grew, she would have to keep moving, keep searching for a way out. If she gave up, she was as good as dead. Some small animal skittered past her, disturbing dead leaves as it ran. She stumbled away from it as her heart lurched. Behind her, a slow, scraping noise echoed between the trees. It sounded like metal on wood. Eileen's eyes stung, and she blinked them furiously as she began moving forward again. The scraping noise continued. The volume rose and fell in waves, sometimes so soft that she thought it might have ceased, but then swelling into a horrific scratching and grating cacophony. She didn't think it was a coincidence that the sound had started just as the last scraps of light faded from the sky. She didn't want to cry, but something wet streaked down her cheek.